I want to show you the most remarkable clip of Joe Biden. This is from yesterday at a factory in Michigan. Unionized workers should be absolutely the Democratic Party's electoral base, but it isn't anymore, really. They're not the party of working men and women anymore. The Democrats like unions, but more the government sector unions now. Campus activists, those kind of people. They think real working men, the kind of guys who wear a hard hat, are sort of yucky. Global warming and gun control and transgender rights, that stuff works on a university campus, but how about with men on a factory shop floor? Well, take a look for yourself. This is almost 2 minutes long, but it is so revealing, I want to roll all of it.
These union workers that have been working countless hours under the Trump administration, I'd like you to explain how you plan to not only keep us working, but how you intend on getting the union vote when there's a large portion of the union workers that are gun enthusiasts, and you are actively trying to diminish our Second Amendment right and take away our guns.
You're full of shit.
All right, thank you.
No, shush. Shush. I support the Second Amendment. Second Amendment, just like right now, if you yell fire, that's not free speech. And from the very beginning, I have a shotgun, I have a 20 gauge, a 12 gauge, my sons hunt. Guess what? You're not allowed to own any weapon. I'm not taking your gun away at all. You need 100 rounds.
So when you were in Beto, when you said you're going to take our guns, that
I did not say that. That's not true. I did not say that.
It's a viral video.
It's a viral video like the other ones they're putting out there. They're simply a lie.
Your voice, you said that you're taking the guns.
Well, he just clarified it.
Wait. Take your AR-14s.
Okay, this is not okay.
Hold on.
All right.
Hey, let's
don't tell me
there's a lot of guys wanting.
I'm not worried. Hold on.
So much.
Give me a break, man. Don't be such a
You're
worried
pushing
guy.
up on me.
Hey, there's a lot of.
Hey. Look, here's the deal. Here's the deal. Are you able to own a machine gun? I said, are you able to own one?
Machine guns are illegal.
That's right. So AR-15's illegal.
How is that in the machine guns?
No, it's not.
Semi-automatic.
Yeah, do you need 100 rounds? Do you need 100 rounds?
In America from handguns than there are what you call assault rifles. Why are you advocating for assault rifles when people are dying by handguns?
That's your Democratic Party candidate right there. I'll get back to that video and another one recorded just afterwards when Biden left the factory. But would you permit me to give you some history? Because I think it's useful. It's true that Hillary Clinton stole the Democratic Party's nomination from Bernie Sanders back in 2016. I know that sounds like a conspiracy theory, or if I were a supporter of Bernie Sanders, maybe sour grapes from a sore loser, but it's actually true. Sanders kept winning. He won the rank and file Democrats in the primaries, sometimes massively, but Hillary had party insiders called superdelegates whose votes counted far more than ordinary voters. They had different strata. Here's a sample of how it went. Let me read from The Guardian. As a member of Sanders' campaign, I'll never forget watching the primary votes being counted for Michigan, one of the key states that decided the 2016 election. Sanders' pledged delegate count, which reflected the number of votes he received from rank-and-file Democrats, exceeded Clinton's by 4. But after the superdelegates cast their ballots, the roll call registered Clinton 76, Sanders 67. Same thing, state after state. Bernie was robbed. He had a real insurgency campaign. In many ways, he was the mirror image of Donald Trump, challenging the system, not just the national system, but his own party system. In fact, as you probably know, Bernie isn't even really a Democrat. For most of his career, he identified as a socialist. And it was true, by the way. In fact, I think it was an understatement. He literally went to the Soviet Union on his honeymoon during the Cold War. And he made it a political trip out of his honeymoon. That's just propaganda. I don't know if you saw this. Look at that. It's him there for some reason, shirtless at drinking. I don't even get that. But anyway, last year we sent our reporter Jessica Svetanevsky and asked Bernie Sanders about his honeymoon in the Soviet Union. And at first he lied.
Do you regret taking your honeymoon there?
Actually, I didn't take a honeymoon there.
You vacationed there.
Who are you with, by the way?
I'm with Rebel Media from Canada. So my parents are Polish. They actually fled the Soviet Union.
My father is Polish. See, we got something in common.
And so what do you think that tells people when you vacation?
It tells people that, first of all, it wasn't a vacation. What was it?
From what we heard, it was your honeymoon.
Well, you heard wrong. You should get your facts right.
Okay, so what were you doing there?
Establishing a sister city relationship with a city called Yaroslavl. Very good program.
Yeah, no, it was his honeymoon, as he himself told the Washington Post. This year, he was even more brazen. He didn't just show his love for the Soviets, he loved Cuba's Castro, too.
We're very opposed to the authoritarian nature of Cuba. But it's unfair to simply say everything is bad. When Fidel Castro came into office, you know what he did? He had a massive literacy program. Is that a bad thing, even though Fidel Castro did it?
Go to prison and read a book to pass the time in there. Maybe that's how it went. But look, the thing is, Bernie Sanders, he's a radical, he's a kook, he's a communist, but he's authentic, as in he believes it. That's what's scary. Well, at least he sort of believes it. I mean, Sanders himself has become a millionaire in recent years, which ought to make it hard to be a socialist, but since when does being rich stop someone from being a socialist? In fact, many of the richest people in the world, from your neighborhood professor making 6 figures a year at a job for life at the university, to Hollywood lovies, to dictators, they're socialist. Socialism is not really about money, it's about power and control. It's not a vow of poverty. The poverty is for other people. So Bernie had 2016 stolen from him. And I'm glad, because the Democrats instead nominated the most unlikable woman in America, Hillary Clinton. Unlikable, phony, not an authentic word, scheming, a product of nepotism. She'd be an unknown lawyer back in Arkansas were it not for the fact that her husband, in a marriage of convenience, Bill Clinton, well, her whole life has reeked of entitlement, of nepotism. It was her turn, damn it. She had run and lost the nomination to Barack Obama in 2008. She ran again in 2016, and controlling the entire party apparatus, she beat Bernie the outsider. But 2016 was a year of throwing out the establishment elites. The UK did that with their Brexit vote. The Republicans did that by throwing out Jeb Bush. That's Jeb there. Brother of George W. Bush, goofy old Jeb, who had raised so much money and had all the establishment endorsements. People just wanted a change, and they didn't want guys like this.
I think the next president needs to be a lot quieter, but send a signal that we're prepared to act in the national security interests of this country, to get back in the business of creating a more peaceful world. Please clap.
Oh boy, he was so easy to make fun of, but he's just the wrong moment. Jeb was less nasty and less corrupt than Hillary, for sure, but he was the same in a lot of ways. Famous last name, entitlement, all the money, so pathetic. He was turfed by a revolution within the Republican Party that nominated a brash outsider, Donald Trump. Don't forget how much he had to run against the party elites, Trump. They laughed at him for so long until it was too late. To this day, party lifers like that loser Mitt Romney, I mean that as a description, not an insult, that loser still won't forgive him.
I sought to hear testimony from John Bolton, not only because I believed he could add context to the charges, but also because I hoped that what he might say could raise reasonable doubt and thus remove from me the awful obligation to vote for impeachment.
Yeah. Republicans scratched that change itch. They were sick of the Romneys. Democrats chose an unlikable creature of the Washington swamp, Hillary Clinton, who just couldn't stop lying. Remember this? After she illegally deleted tens of thousands of emails that she had sent to Secretary of State.
Official charge. Did you wipe the circle?
What, like with a cloth or something? Well, no.
Yeah, that's what they meant, Hillary. Look, I don't know if that whole email thing was important to actual grassroots voters. I think it was more for media and other political insiders, but her obvious trickery and lying and the obvious reality that she could get away with things that you couldn't was palpable. And the fact that her family foundation was cashing literally $25 million checks from foreign governments like the Saudis while she was Obama's Secretary of State, it was a feeling, wasn't it, about her? That and the fact that she just truly doesn't have time for the little people. I mentioned that Bernie Sanders was a socialist, but he was also a populist, which is at odds with being a globalist. Hillary loved globalism because it means She could travel the world in luxury. She could play God sometimes. Like this time in Libya.
We came, we saw, he died. Did it have anything to do with your visit? No, oh, I'm sure it did.
Yeah, Libya is such a joke, eh? What a mess that's. There's slavery now again in the cities of Libya, but hey, she killed Muammar Gaddafi. She actually promised to do the same thing to Iran.
And I want the Iranians to know that if I'm the president, we will attack Iran.
Oh, just that. And she also wants to do the same in Syria, which means against the Russian Air Force, really.
I think a no-fly zone could save lives and could hasten the end of the conflict. I am well aware of the really legitimate concerns that you have expressed from both the president and the general. This would not be done just on the first day. This would take a lot of negotiation. It would also take making it clear to the Russians and the Syrians that our purpose here was to provide safe zones on the ground.
Imagine just telling Syria that you're going to ban Syrian planes over Syria. Oh, and there's a Russian air base there too. You're just going to... She wanted to start a war with everybody. I think she liked playing God. I think she liked the huge foreign payola for her foundation, but she also liked trade deals that hollowed out middle America, that sent American industry to China and other places without reciprocity. We all like the idea of trade, but not lopsided trade where we get to buy things from China and in return they get to sell us things. That doesn't help working men in the heartland of America or Canada, who used to be the backbone in the States of the Democratic Party. Hillary Clinton was in love with celebrities, though. Her campaign was stuffed with celebrities, the coastal elites, Manhattan and Hollywood. They endorsed her, they wrote songs about her, they did videos for her, they had parties with her, they hugged her. That was her style, not the people in flyover country. Alas, those are the people who voted for Trump. Pennsylvania, Ohio, Wisconsin, Michigan, for heaven's sakes. Those are places that hadn't voted Republican in a generation. You know, Hillary Clinton and her friends in the elites claimed for years after the loss that Russia somehow robbed her of her victory, even though a massive, costly, and abusive inquiry by a fellow Democrat named Robert Mueller absolutely exonerated Trump. The whole collusion accusation is a hoax, unless Russia was the reason why Hillary Clinton forgot to visit Wisconsin. You know, she literally did not go there during the entire general election. Whoops. But didn't those hicks know? They were supposed to vote how Jay-Z and Beyonce told them to vote. Why didn't they? Anyways, you know how that ended? Trump won, and won big, even though all the smart people were literally predicting a 93% chance that Hillary Clinton would win just days before the election. I mean, everyone knew Clinton would vote because everyone they knew was voting for Clinton. Wasn't it proof that everyone I talked to is voting for Hillary Clinton? For sure she's going to win. Yeah, it's just proof that you're in a little bubble. So that was 2016. Bernie Sanders did two things. The first was that he endorsed Hillary Clinton in 2016. Now, I get it. I guess that's what you do when you're a Democrat, even though he really never was a member of that party in a real way. But you decide that the Democrats are better than the Republicans, even if Hillary Clinton was the embodiment of everything Bernie said he was against, a creature of the Washington swamp, an ally of Wall Street billionaires, a warmonger, someone who would hollow out American industry. Bernie bent the knee to her. But when Clinton lost, he never stopped campaigning. He felt vindicated in a way, and he only grew in terms of his appeal on the campuses, and he had support from the artistic community too. Not so much the Wall Street-style multimillionaire artists, more like the folk singers and the activists. It had a 60s feel to it, you know, like Bernie's himself, I guess. He's so old, he's almost 80. He recently had a heart attack. But to many young people, that was only a sign that he was authentic. He was wise. He wasn't fake like that weird robot candidate that the youth were supposed to like, Pete Buttigieg.
The way we do every other election, by giving it to the person who got the most votes. Just a thought. Brings us together. This country was built. It is a movement reaching into church basements and barbershops, into universities and union halls.
And if
we can light up the neighborhoods and we can light up the city. Shines as a beacon around the world once more.
And this is our chance to answer that call.
What a faker. Oh, he's absolutely CIA. Here's Buttigieg's youth group for real. Woo! I'm shocked that didn't win. Come on, youth. How are you doing, fellow kids? Yeah, no, they wanted Bernie. He had 4 years to campaign, and he had all the radicals on his team, all the socialists, all the gender activists, all the racial activists, Linda Sarsour, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. The leftist future of the party was with him. Here's a quick clip from a Bernie rally this week.
هذه فرصتنا لانتخاب رئيس عادل وشجاع للولايات المتحدة. لأول مرة نجد هناك من يدافع عن حقوقنا كمسلمين وكعرب.
I swear to God, that is real. Bernie Sanders, who is nominally Jewish, by the way, having extremist imams like that guy. That guy claims the Jews invented ISIS. He was speaking at a Bernie event in Arabic. That's where the energy is in the Democratic Party. But alas, it wasn't enough. Last night, Bernie Sanders got clobbered. Joe Biden crushed him. Took the lead in delegates, real delegates, not just super delegates. Sure, things are still rigged against Bernie, but he lost fair and square too. Look at these exit polls. Young people voted overwhelmingly for Bernie. Translation, people who haven't yet had to pay taxes, people who are still in university or living in their mom's basements, or people who are involved with radical politics, people who have no memory of the Soviet Union or Castro. People with some life experience, a job, raising a family, they voted overwhelmingly for Biden. And if you can see that chart, if you put that back up for a second, the turnout by young people was, if you can see it underneath their ages, like 18 to 24, that's 7% of voters. But look down a bit, 50 to 64-year-olds, that was 32% of the vote. 65 and over, that was 23% of the vote. So 55% of voters were 50 and up, and look at how they voted for Biden. Youth turnout appallingly low, as usual, which I am glad for. I'm glad that all these insane Twitter leftists on social media are just that, keyboard warriors who won't bother to vote. They think clicking like online is all they need to do, which is why we need to never ever allow online voting, not just for reasons of hacking and China actually rigging the election, but we can't let Twitter replace our ballots. So Biden won last night. He crushed it, actually. Bernie Sanders lost the states last night that he won 4 years ago. Look at that. Why? I have some explanations. One is 2020 is different than 2016. You can't just rerun the same battle plan. You can't have a do-over. Life's not like that. Second, Trump is different. He's made inroads with blue-collar voters. Look at what Trump's done for the auto industry, the steel industry. He happens to be a billionaire himself, sure, with outrageously ostentatious style, but he's gone against his class, you could say. He's a working-class billionaire, you could say, by fighting against China, by putting tariffs on imports, by using his bully pulpit to demand that companies bring their factories back to America, by standing up for people in states like Pennsylvania and Ohio. When was the last time a Democrat stood next to coal miners? Do you think those coal miners and steel workers would vote for any Democrat who promises a Green New Deal? Translation, put people in coal and oil and fracking out of work? Now, I personally think Bernie would have been a threat to Trump because of his populist outsider style. But apparently Democrats don't. They were worried about Bernie for whatever reason, too old, too socialist, too radical. So they went with Biden, who is just 1 year younger, but doesn't feel like a radical. He just doesn't. 8 years of being Barack Obama's vice president, a rather unaccomplished vice president, I think, other than enriching his own family in a small version of what Hillary Clinton did.
A 2013 trip to China getting new attention this morning, not for what Joe Biden did, but for who he brought with him. His son, Hunter, joining the then vice president on the official visit to Beijing, along with Hunter's daughter, Finnegan. Unknown to the press back then, Hunter Biden was forming a Chinese private equity fund, planning to raise money, including from Chinese investors. Years later, Hunter Biden acknowledged that during the trip, he met with a Chinese banker, which his spokesperson describes as a social visit, not a business one. 10 days after the Biden's trip, Shanghai authorities issued the fund's business license.
That's crooked. But Biden looks presidential. People can imagine it because they saw him next to Obama for 8 years, and it doesn't feel scary. He worked in the White House for 8 years and didn't come across as particularly dangerous. So for those reasons, or if I'm wrong, for other reasons, Biden had a great night last night. He's going to win, I think, but he's getting wobbly. You put a man out in public for hours a day, every moment of it filmed, not just by official media cameras, but by anyone with a cell phone camera, and a guy's going to flub some words. They certainly love it when Donald Trump says something wrong or funny, or even just a quirk, like when he says huge instead of huge. But with Biden, it's every single speech now, and it's weird. I've shown you this montage before.
Look, tomorrow's Superstar Tuesday, and I want to thank you all. I tell you what, I'm rushing ahead, aren't I? 150 million people have been killed since 2007 when Bernie voted to exempt the gun manufacturers from liability. It would put 720 million women back in the workforce. Nobody should be in jail for a nonviolent crime. My name's Joe Biden. I'm a Democratic candidate for the United States Senate. What's not to like about Vermont in terms of the beauty of it? And what a neat town. Play the radio. Make sure the television, make sure you have the record player on at night. Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids. We choose science over fiction. We choose truth over facts. Think about it. We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing.
That's not just misspeaking. That's not just flubbing a word or getting trapped on something. That's forgetting things. That's losing your train of thought. That's forgetting where you are, who people are, what you're running for. And getting angry when you forget, like this weirdness. Wait. He does that a lot. Wait. He's done that several times. It's weird. It's a bit of a panic. That's lashing out at a guy for a normal question. But that exchange yesterday in the factory, that was extended. That was very interesting. Take a look one more time, and then I'm going to talk to you about it for a minute.
These union workers, they have been working countless hours under the Trump administration. I'd like you to explain how you plan to not only keep us working, but how you intend on getting the union vote when there's a large portion of the union workers that are gun enthusiasts, and you are actively trying to diminish your Second Amendment right and take away our guns.
You're full of shit.
All right, thank you.
No, shush. I support the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment, just like right now, if you yell fire, that's not free speech. And from the very beginning, I have a shotgun, I have a 20 gauge, a 12 gauge, my sons hunt. Guess what? You're not allowed to own any weapon. I'm not taking your gun away at all. You need 100 rounds.
So when you were with Beto, when you said you're going to take our guns,
I did not say that. That's not true. I did not say that.
It's a viral video.
It's a viral video like the other ones they're putting out that are simply a lie.
Your voice, you said that you're taking the guns.
Well, he just clarified it. Wait. Take your AR-14s.
Okay, this is not okay.
Hold on.
All right.
And let's
don't tell me
there's a lot of guys wanting.
I'm not worried.
Hold
on. Give me a break, man. Don't be such a
You're
worried
pushing
guy.
up on me.
Hey, there's a lot of.
Hey. Look, here's the deal. Here's the deal. Are you able to own a machine gun? I said, are you able to own one?
Machine guns are illegal.
That's right. So AR-15's illegal.
How is that a machine gun?
No, it's not.
Semi-automatic.
Yeah, do you need 100 rounds? Do you need 100 rounds?
In America from handguns, and there are what you call assault rifles. Why are you advocating for assault rifles when people are dying by handguns?
So it was a respectful question. How do you intend to get union votes from gun owners? I thought it was polite. He was speaking in about this volume, but only because it was a noisy place. It wasn't shouting. He had actually written it out on his phone and was reading it. And the first thing Biden said immediately was, "You're full of shit." And if you notice, his handler immediately weighs in and says, "All right, it's in time to go." But Biden says, "Shush, be quiet, the men are talking." Boy, he ought to have listened to her. But he had things to say. And when the man pushed back, saying he saw Biden on TV talking with Beto O'Rourke about taking away guns, I mean, when Biden promised that to Beto O'Rourke, the failed Democrat who made gun control his campaign centerpiece, when this hard hat worker mentioned that, again, politely, Biden went angrier. He pointed a finger right in the man's face, and the man politely said it wasn't okay, put his hand up like that, but Biden kept at it. He called AR-15s AR-14s. He talked about 100 rounds. I've shot an AR-14. It doesn't take 100 rounds. It's not a thing. And then he says, don't tell me that or I'll go outside with you. Was he threatening to fight that man? Of course, that's what he means. I don't think he meant that for real. He was panicking. He was lashing out. He was trying to change the subject. He was trying to show he's a tough guy. The questioner was actually not rude at all, even when Biden's finger was in his face. Biden says, don't be such a horse's ass. And then he says AR-15s are illegal. No, they're not. He says they're machine guns. No, none of those things are true. The man asked, why are you trying to ban assault rifles when people are dying from handguns? I think that's a good question, and Biden walked away, which he should have done 2 minutes earlier. Really weird, the media party loved it. Here's CBS News. They said it was wonderful. I actually think "you're full of shit" was the right response to this man. Oh, one after the other. The media party, the blue checkmark crew on Twitter, they loved it because they want to prop up the man that they know will be the Democratic standard bearer. They want to protect him now. Everyone has to protect Joe Biden now. And the media party doesn't have much time for actual working men in factories anyways, let alone those who like guns, let alone those who know more about guns than they do, let alone those who actually make a pretty good case. And they thought if they squinted their eyes hard enough, that they could see that Trump bluster in Joe Biden that they hate so much from Trump. And now they have their anti-Trump. That's it. They now have their bully to beat Trump, who they consider to be a bully. A brash, straight-talking man of the people to beat Trump, the brash, straight-talking man of the people. Except no, Biden got every fact wrong. He went negative immediately on a working man who was positive immediately. Biden was thin-skinned, he was brittle, he was agitated, he actually threatened violence in a way. Do you want to go outside? So weird. That's actually not what Trump does if you pay attention. Trump uses wit and wisecracks and absolutely uses insults too. But he tends to punch up, not down. Now you could say everyone is down from the president, but he doesn't insult ordinary people who ask him polite questions. He insults rivals in the media and the Democrats, even other Republicans. He gives people nicknames, but to big shots, people who can fight back, who are powerful in their own way. Insulting and threatening and arguing and pointing a finger right in the face of a working man on the shop floor? Yeah, no, that's not how Trump does it. Trump likes to shake hands with working men if he can, especially men in uniform, firemen, police, soldiers. Look at him hopping out of his motorcade here just to give a handshake to some firemen. I can't remember what this was. I remember him doing it though. He stopped his limo to shake hands with some blue-collar men. How different than Biden. Biden's campaign team is now making his public appearances very brief. His speeches are limited to just a few minutes a day, 7 minutes the other day, all from scripted teleprompters, no riffing. Trump, by contrast, gives 60-minute, 90-minute off-the-cuff speeches in stadiums. They're funny, they're tough, sometimes a bit silly, but he's in control of his mouth. Sometimes he's hilarious.
She was really mean to Mini Mike, I'll tell you, the way she treated him. He didn't know what hit him. He's going, oh, get me off of this stage. Get me off! Get me off of this stage!
He was making fun of Mike Bloomberg there. That's funny, no matter what the left says. That's funny. And Mike Bloomberg's a $66 billion man. He can take an insult. The weird thing is the personal insults as a reaction, like an emotional reaction with Biden. Like he came out with the insults because he couldn't handle the question. Here's a highlight reel of personal insults and threats. So you're going to say Trump does this too. I say again, not as the first line of defense against anyone, and not against the little people. You tell me, take a look.
Gotta stop building and replacing pipelines. You gotta go vote for someone else.
All right, thanks so much, sir. We're gonna have you here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
I'm gonna vote you in the general if you treat me right.
I know. More than most people know. And I can get things done. That's why I'm running. And you want to check my shape on, let's do push-ups together here, man. Let's run. Let's do whatever you want to do.
You ever been to a caucus? No, you haven't. You're a lying, dog-faced pony soldier.
Look, Pat, look, here's the deal. Here's the deal.
Well, can I have a
Look, you're asking a picture of me, you're coming up and telling me you don't support me.
No.
My plan, yeah, you did. You said
I said I will support you in the general.
In the general. I'm looking for a primary.
We're happy to
and a
get a number.
caucus.
We can follow up.
That's what I'm looking for, okay?
Just because
Now,
we're finding it.
you believe that Bernie can do something by 2030?
I'm actually supporting Tom Steyer.
I'm not voting for you. Well, I knew you weren't, man. You think I thought you stand up and vote for me? You're too old to vote for me.
I'm beginning to see why your wife left you.
Biden trying to bully a working man isn't funny or smart or endearing or clever, especially when the other guy is so polite. It's lame. And take a look at Biden walking out of the factory. He looked rattled and slightly old and slightly dazed, like he didn't really know what he had done in the factory, but he knew he had done something wrong because his staff told him so. So they gave him some line about blaming Bernie Sanders or something. Take a look at him leaving that factory.
Right temperament with voters that you don't agree with, sir.
Vice President, on the coronavirus, they're both targeting you over this exchange this morning with the voter about guns. Any regrets about how you handled it?
Well, I'm surprised that Sanders is joining Trump. You know, it just surprised me.
Was it appropriate to swear at an American, though, especially a union voter? Was it appropriate?
Thank you.
Joe Biden, I think he's losing it. They're handling him. They're going to try and keep him under wraps now. No live interviews, no debates if possible, or as few as possible. They'll want to wrap up the Democratic primaries right away, get Sanders to concede as soon as possible to avoid more Democratic Party debates. They'll keep him behind closed doors, just scripted, pre-recorded moments released on video. The opposite of Trump, the opposite of Sanders. Democrats are publicly saying this. Biden has to avoid talking in public or he'll make a mistake he just can't come back from. Yeah, that's not good in a candidate, and it's terrifying in a man who would be president, who cares about campaigning. I don't care about campaigning. Imagine if he ran the country. But I don't know if he will. James Woods, a rare conservative Hollywood actor, has been saying for weeks that Hillary Clinton will take over. Biden will be the candidate, maybe Hillary is VP, and then they'll have a switcheroo. Either officially, Biden will step down for the good of the country, or Hillary will be the de facto president. What do you think? Both are terrible outcomes. The Democratic establishment thinks that's less terrible than Bernie Sanders. What do you think? I think I see a Trump 2020 victory. That's an excerpt from my daily show, The Ezra Levant Show. Every day I do a monologue on the news of the day, then I interview an interesting guest, and then I read my hate mail. You gotta subscribe. Go to rebelnews.com.